You know, so many people are going to come on YouTube and tell you that you don't really need a camera, that you could do it with a phone, you could do it with whatever you have, you don't need a camera, you don't have to spend the money, you don't want to deal with lenses, you don't want to have to deal with specs and aperture and white balance and all that. You just want simple, you just want easy mode. And as much as I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I'm going to argue that if you're making YouTube videos, I mean, unless you absolutely have not a penny to your name, no credit, no nothing, like unless you are like living on the street and you somehow are able to keep your phone going and you're uploading directly to YouTube from your phone, then this video is not for you. And I have so much respect for you for persevering and for making YouTube videos if you're in that kind of circumstance. And I'm sure there are plenty of people in that circumstance, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about most people who can't afford to get a camera of some kind, because you can get a camera for $100. You can get a camera for $200 definitely, and you could get an amazing camera, like a movie making machine, for $350, $400. Absolutely. But you would have to get a lens. So I'm going to say that to get a really great camera that you could grow with, that you could learn on, that you can probably never have to upgrade again in your life if you don't want to, because you could actually make films with this camera. And I'm not even going to talk about a specific camera because, you know, look, I'm shooting on a Panasonic GH5 right now. My main camera is my Panasonic S5, which is a full frame camera. This is a micro four thirds. And I'm shooting with a TT Artisan 17mm f1.4 lens. And I'm shooting at f1.4 right now. So you could see I have blurry background. This is micro four thirds. I'm really close to the camera. I can touch the lens. I have my lights set up, you know, pretty simply. I'm in the area where I usually am, which is kind of boring at this point, but it looks okay. And I'm going to argue that you need a camera to have a good YouTube channel, because I think that way you're more invested. That way you're more committed. You know, you have gotten the gear necessary to be a filmmaker, because whether you like it or not, when you start uploading YouTube videos, when you start telling stories, when you start putting together, you know, this like, you know, a group of videos, one after another, after another, after another, and you start to put like a show together where people expect you to show up, where you have to, you know, come up with new ideas every day or every week or however you're going to do it. I think if you get a camera, you're making a commitment to yourself. You're investing in yourself. Into something that's going to make you better. It's going to let you acquire a skill that is, I would argue, necessary to do well on YouTube. And I'm not talking about doing well with the numbers, with money, with all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about making good YouTube videos, because trust me, there are plenty of amazing people, amazing artists, amazing videos being made on YouTube that are getting no numbers. They don't have any subscribers. They have very little views. They don't know how to do SEO and all that kind of stuff. You know, the thumbnails are lacking maybe. You know, their titles, it's hard to tell. Maybe they don't really deal with hashtags and tags and things like that. Like, look, I'm not even good at that, so I have no idea. But I'm talking about good quality YouTube, where people come and they feel something from you. You know, they feel something in their chest from what you're doing. They see it. And even though they can't really break it down and explain what they're seeing or why it's making them feel a certain kind of way, they just feel it. Because you're putting an effort into it. You're intentionally trying to make it look good. And it's also making you feel better, because you're developing something that you hadn't been able to do before, that you didn't think you could do. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself mastering this craft, this creative practice that just makes you feel good and helps you to tell your story. And then you start thinking, how can I add visual aspects to this storytelling? Like maybe you don't want to just sit in front of the camera. Now in this video, I'm just doing a talking head. There's not going to be any B-roll. There's not going to be anything else. But if you go through my last few videos, I have some beautiful B-roll that I just decided to add to the video because of where I was. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And I said, let me get some shots. Let me practice. Let me always work on my craft. Always. So I do that from time to time, but I also do this from time to time. But I make the effort. I think, you know what? Tonight I want a wide-angle lens. I want to use the 35mm equivalent, which is what this lens is. And I'll set up my lights and, I have my sound together. I'm using a Boya shotgun mic on top of the camera because I'm this close to it. And I made a baseline effort to respect the audience, to respect whoever is kind enough to come here and spend time with me. I'm trying to make it look good. Now, does it look like a movie or a documentary? Actually, it does. It can. If you're a cinematographer, you might think it sucks. That would be crazy talk anyway, because it's all a matter of taste. Some people like it, some people don't. I've had comments here like, just because you're sitting in the dark with lights doesn't mean it's cinematic. You've never heard me say it's cinematic. You've never even heard me talk about the image quality of my videos. I make videos where I like the way they look. I like dark videos. I like that. I like films like that. Some people hate that. Some people like it really bright. I've had people come here and say, why don't you turn the lights on? What are you doing? We want to see your face, blah, blah, blah. You see my face. I'm talking about, I'm doing it the way I like the way it looks, which is what you have the opportunity to do. You can switch focal lengths. You might want to get, a longer lens that looks a little bit more compressed, which I know people argue about that. There's really no compression or whatever. I don't even talk about that, but it'll appear like the back is closer. You won't be able to see as much around me. You'll be focused only on my face. I wanted you to see what was in the room, but still be focused on my face because I'm so close to the camera. And I'm using a 35mm equivalent lens because it's not distorting my face. I'm not looking the way people look when they use like a fisheye lens and your nose gets big and your face gets all warped. And, some people like that though. It's an aesthetic, if it's a choice. There are major films made that way. So it's really a matter of what some people like and what other people like and what some people don't like and what other people don't like. It's all a matter of taste. But my argument is that if you're going to give yourself the opportunity to change lenses or change focal lengths, if you have perhaps a camera that has a zoom capability where you don't have to switch the lenses, but I would argue having interchangeable lenses is better and it's cheap. You could buy vintage lenses for 15, 20 bucks. You want to get amazing ones like a Helios 44-2, then knock yourself out and spend 75 bucks. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. The adapters cost like $12. No autofocus, no aperture attached to the camera, no electronics attached to the camera, which is a good thing because then you have to learn how to do it. You know who Gordon Parks was? Gordon Parks is a legendary photographer from back in the day. One of the most important black artists of our time, in the history of this country. And, he was shooting at a time where there was no autofocus, there was no, aperture control in the camera, none of that. He had to know how to use a camera. He had to learn about shutter speed and shutter angle, and he had to learn about all that stuff, white balance, ISO settings. He actually used ISO film. Brain fart right there. There's so much value in getting a camera that you have to learn from because you get to use your brain. And as a result, I would argue that the more you learn about it, the more creative you can become. The more you really understand, what these settings actually do. How to make a decision or a choice between using an ND filter or raising your ISO settings. The choice of your white balance, depending upon how you want the image to look in terms of the color. You might not have perfect, middle gray or anything like that because you don't want it that way. That's up to you. The aperture, how much of the background do you want to blur out? How much do you want people to see? That's your choice. And the thing is, you learn it well enough to just throw it away. And then it just comes natural when you're telling your story. You're like, oh, let me just make a few adjustments, and you get it to look the way you want it to look, and it feels like the story that you're telling, and it's fun, and it's amazing. And I just think it's so much better than just throwing a phone up and telling a story. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating on it. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not comparing anything really. And, you know, I guess I am comparing it, but I'm not comparing it with regards to what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying you don't have to learn anything if you're just shooting with your phone. You don't even have to deal with your lights, really. It's going to auto-expose everything. It's going to do everything for you. And chances are, if you shoot with a phone, you're not even thinking about your composition, really. But with a camera and you have a lens and you start changing focal lengths and you start really looking all the way to the edge of the frame, you're going to start thinking about what you want, what you don't want in that image. You know, what you want to put across to people. You know, what might be distracting to your story and what might add to it. Maybe you're out on a river, you know, where trains are going by, and while you're telling the story, you want people to see these trains going by. You want people to see other people in boats out there in the water. You want to see birds flying by. Or perhaps you're somewhere where it's just ugly behind you and you just want people focused on you. So you get a longer lens where you can't really see anything around your face and people just focus on you, and you can blur everything out with your aperture. So you can make these choices, and sometimes that looks really good. It looks really dramatic. It can look really beautiful, you know, but it also could be really overused and used for no apparent reason. You know, recently somebody told me that they were watching a Netflix special that everybody loves. I can't even think of the name of it right now, which is a good thing because I'm going to criticize it, because I was told that even though the story is great, they're just blurring out the background on every shot, that it just became boring. And it just became weird, like not aesthetically pleasing, because it had nothing to do with the story. It was just like, yo, we could blur out the background in every shot. So all you see is people's faces and everything else is blurry. And so it's interesting because it's a very popular show. And I'm glad I can't remember the name of it, because now I can't get into an argument with people about, oh, it's the greatest show, that's the worst show, whatever. Doesn't matter. I just think if you're shooting on YouTube, if you're contributing videos here for people to see, I just happen to think that it's really awesome if you have a camera. I think it's a great hobby if you're not going to consider yourself professional. It's a great beginning to possibly a professional career as a photographer or a filmmaker. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. You can get a GH5 right now, for example, and I'm not pushing the GH5, but you can get one for like $400 on eBay. You can get one for $500 on MPB. You can get a Panasonic S5. You can get a full frame camera for $750 or $800. You can get cheap lenses. You know, you don't have to get expensive lenses. You can easily spend under $1,000 for your entire studio setup. 2 little lights. You can get lights for $15, $25, size of credit cards. You can get a stick light for $15 from B&H. This microphone you can get for $20. Camera for somewhere between $200 and $500. Get yourself either one good zoom lens, like the 20 to 60 kit lens on Panasonic for the full frame. If you get an S5, it's going to cost you like $200, $250 tops. If you use a GH5, get yourself a zoom lens that you don't have to get the newest version. Get a version from 2017 or something like that. Get a 12 to 35 or a 10 to 20. Something like that, or a 10 to 25, I think it is. You can get them for $100, $80 on eBay. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you can get something that's incredibly capable and something that you can really learn from and really do beautiful things with. And then you're making it a thing, like a real thing that you're committed to. You're thinking about your lights. You're thinking about your image quality. You're thinking about how you look in the frame. Like tonight, I wanted to be really intimate about this. I wanted to do something that I haven't done in a while, which is just basically fill the frame with my head, my big round head, but still allow you to see what's going on behind me and make the lights look nice, you know, for some people. Because again, some people will go, yo, why is it so dark? What's up with that? You know, it's like, whatever. You know, if you don't like it, then don't look at it. It's cool. You know, that's the cool thing about YouTube. You could just go look at another video. So I think it's really cool to make it a thing, to make it something that you're focused on, that you're excited about, that you're learning from, that you're studying other people from. Like, get on all the YouTube videos and learn about filmmaking, learn about photography, and don't just stick to watching videos about cameras and lenses and lights and all that. Like, definitely watch all that stuff and learn as much as you can. But also, get into like, watching videos about street photographers or photographers who deal with conflict like war, or photographers who do fashion or whatever, and think about, like what they're saying in the video about their mindset, about their approach creatively and artistically, because there's really, really great value to that, and that'll open up your mind to the endless possibilities of photography and filmmaking, and this fun thing to do, whether you're professional or amateur, whatever, it doesn't matter. I know some amateur filmmakers who are off the charts talented, like they could easily be on a set making a Netflix movie or an HBO movie or something like that, but they do other things with their lives. But if they have a YouTube channel, they take it very seriously. They want it to sound good. You want to get great audio, because that's easy to do. Like if you're not getting good audio, it's just because you're lazy, because you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can't make any excuses. You don't even have to spend a lot of time. You have to just learn it. And then once you learn it, it's so easy. You just plug it in. You know how to do it. You know how to set your levels. Or you get 32-bit float. Spend a little bit of extra money. It's still, we're not talking about thousands of dollars. We're talking about $150, $100, something like that. It's not that much. Now again, some people can't afford that, and that's fine. And some of these phones have incredible preamps in the phone itself, so it sounds pretty good, but focus on having good audio. Focus on having a good balanced shot, a good balanced image. Try to get good colors, try to experiment, see what you like. Try to really focus on your lights, put them in different positions, put them, in different parts of the room. Try to think about, what you want to put in the room. I have a baseball bat up there. I have my dog's collar up there. I have these sculptures called Ted's Heads. I have my father's old camera. I got a painting back there. I got a Broadway sign that I stole. Don't tell anybody. When they were changing signs, I have a Saturday Evening Post, old magazine. My grandfather's on the cover. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was an usher at Yankee Stadium when they had ushers, and he used to hustle seats, and he became a part of a famous painting by an artist named Stephen Dehano. So I have that up there. So, when people watch your YouTube video, you can do what I just did and share what's back there, and it's kind of interesting. You learn a lot. And those things are only there because this is a thing for me. Even though I'm a professional artist, like that's what I do for a living, YouTube, I take it very seriously. Even though I don't put the same effort into YouTube that I do for a feature film, but I put enough in where I'm not going to disrespect you for coming here. And I love using my cameras, and I love choosing different lenses. I love thinking about the way I want it to look. And I never sit down here unless I really have something to say. Even though I'm posting every single day, for me, it's a personal diary. So I'm not really worried about the numbers. I'm not really worried about anything. I mean, I would love to make a lot of money on YouTube, but I ain't worried about it. That's not where I'm focusing on, oh my God, this is what I have to do to make this, grow. Like, of course I want it to grow, but I have a great audience here, really solid group of really supportive people who exchange even with one another. Like if you look at my comments, you'll see people commenting to each other, not even to me sometimes, which to me is like, that's a great honor. So that's that's my argument for the night. Like, I think you should get a camera. I think if you don't have the money right now, I think you should save up for it, and I think you should buy a camera. I don't think you should get the latest and the greatest. I don't think you should spend thousands of dollars on a camera unless you're rich, unless it doesn't matter to you, or unless you want to. That's fine too. Maybe you want to get the new Panasonic S1 Mark II. Maybe you want an S1R Mark II. Maybe you want a Canon R5C or a Nikon Z6 III or whatever. Maybe you want something like that. If you have the money, ain't nobody here to tell you what to do. But what I'm saying is if you're being a little bit more rational or reasonable, I would say, and I know that's a leap of faith to say that because I'm not judging anybody for any kind of decision that they would make. But, if you want to start slow, then, keep your budget below $500, $700, something like that, $1,000 at the most. But trust me, for $500, you can get a GH5 with a good lens, and you can get a Boya mic for $20 and get a couple of lights, and you're under $500 or $600, and you are in great shape. tripods. You can get tripods for 15 bucks at Amazon. You don't need a great tripod if you have a GH5. It's not going anywhere. So just get a cheap tripod. You don't have to spend a lot of money on any of this stuff. You don't have to get a gimbal. You don't have to get all this stuff that people talk about all the time. You don't have to have a wireless system for your audio, but even if you want it, it ain't that much money. Hollyland Lark Max, you know, DJI, like they all have great systems that don't cost a lot of money. And if you have a job, if you work, if you're well-to-do, you can save up a little bit of money and get something that makes you take this a little bit more seriously, makes you have a little bit more respect for it, because now you've spent a little bit of money. Now it's real. Now you're putting a little bit more pressure on yourself to tell better stories, to look better, to show some respect to the audience, to show some self-respect to yourself. Like, I spent money, I got this stuff, what am I going to do with it now? I got to do something. So tell stories, contribute. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you're doing. Especially if you're getting yourself some gear, you know, some foundational basic gear, which, like I said, I can't consider a GH5 foundational basic gear. I mean, you could shoot open gate, you could shoot anamorphic, you could shoot 4K 60 without a crop, you can shoot unlimited 4K recording, you can, you know, use a full-size HDMI. I mean, there's so much to this camera that, you know, spending 450 bucks and getting a camera like this is not basic foundational. It's something that you can make a professional documentary with. And why not you? Why not? Why can't you do something great? Why can't you create something amazing? Why can't you create memories to leave behind for your family and for other people who know you and people who don't know you for the rest of your life? Why can't you do that? Why can't you contribute to the events of the day, the politics of the day, the things going on around the world? Like, why not? Why not you? Why can't you contribute, things that you do well that other people might not know about? Like, maybe you're a great cook, a chef, maybe you know how to fix cars, maybe you know about plumbing, or maybe you're an engineer, maybe you know science, maybe you're an accountant who can help people. I mean, maybe there's a way to make accounting interesting. Maybe you're a mathematician, and maybe you think like some kind of otherworldly genius and turns it into music. You're special. There's nobody else like you. Nobody could do you better than you. So if you're going to do YouTube, get yourself a camera, get some lenses, a couple, at least one. I would recommend a zoom lens if you're only getting one. 10 to 25, 12 to 35 with a micro four thirds, or something equivalent to a 24 to 70. You're covered. And get a little cheap mic, get some lights, get a little tripod, and you're good. Oh, definitely get yourself a little retractable stool like I have. And by the way, there are like affiliate links in my description for all of this stuff. And trust me, I have chosen all the cheapest prices that I could find in these links. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, check it out, but you don't have to use my links. I'm just saying, like, shop around, get the best deal, get whatever makes you comfortable, but take this seriously and do it and learn something, because the personal growth that you'll gather from it is so worth it. And there's nothing wrong with learning. There's nothing wrong with growing, with, putting yourself in a position that you're not totally comfortable with, out of your comfort zone. That's a life well lived.